All right, the rule of three. It's a decision-making tool. And there's really nothing spectacular. There's no insightful trick here on how to make the right decision every time. This is really a anchoring tool, if you will, of helping people who are, for whatever reason, whether it's through being overwhelmed or through simple procrastination, of getting to the point of making that decision so that they can move on in their journey of growth and discovery, which ultimately every decision leads to, right? So the key thing to understand about this rule of three and decision making in general is our brain hasn't evolved and isn't designed to make decisions in the environment that we find ourselves in. What do I mean by that? The truth is, for millennia and even up to a few decades ago, every decision that we made had a simple binary outcome. Is it going to help me with survival, or is it going to lead me closer to my doom? If it helps, bring me, ensure my survival and make my survival maybe even a little more comfortable, boom, that's what the decision I'm making. Because I'm not going to go to this decision because it was simply that, bringing me closer or further away from moving forward. And we live in a world now where the vast majority of the decisions that we're making, 99.9% of them, have nothing to do with survival, actual survival. It might feel like it because we're putting a threat, a potential threat in our brain, and our brain doesn't know that it's not an actual life-threatening survival threat. You've just labeled this decision a threat. You've put potential catastrophic outcomes on that then send it into this bigger than life survival problem solving things, because that's what your brain is designed to do. Make decisions that affect your actual survival. But when it comes to deciding between the 14 different colors and styles of a case for your smartphone, is it really that survival? It might feel like it. You might get wound up, but when it comes to the actual outcome, is it a survival? No. But your brain is looking at all of the different options and weighing them as if they are. And so this is a tool that helps your brain get to where it needs to be to make a decision, an informed decision that is good enough to move you forward in your journey of, again, self-discovery and growth in a meaningful way, all right? And get you unstuck from being unable to make a decision because of either procrastination or being overwhelmed. So step one is real simple. We need to create a desired outcome, a specific desired outcome. The more specific, the better. Why? Because that decision is going to anchor us with, particularly through the research process of helping to be able to make a good decision, right? What is your desired outcome? Now, you can have multiple ones there of what potentially could happen, right? And you can list those as subs, and you will, but what is the one that you really want? What is your desired actual outcome? Write it down. Because we want to get away from having our brain thinking of all the potential outcomes that could be out there to the one that we want, so that we can go to this next step. All right, the next step, step two, comes to the research part. Now, this is a double-edged sword because it can aid and abet, particularly the procrastinator or the person that's overwhelmed, right? Doing research is a tool that we've got to understand its strengths and its weaknesses for us. So the first thing, whether you're procrastinating about a decision or you're overwhelmed about a decision, is asking yourself, does this decision have a timeline? Is there a date that I need to make this decision? If the answer is yes, then you need to set a time of when you're going to finish your research and make that decision. You put that date, right? So if there's a college application, a loan application, or some other project that you need to make a decision on, and there's a specific date, 4 days away, 4 weeks away, 4 months away. You set a date by when all of your research is going to be done. And then you set another date of when you're actually going to make your decision. Okay? So that it focuses you. Why is that important when it comes to the research side of things? Because for the procrastinator, it's going to force them. See, when it comes to research, I enjoy research, right? Me and my little ADD brain love seeing all of the options and how they get together. And we've all chased rabbits, particularly on the internet. It's so easy. It's such a wonderful thing seeing all the associations. You're doing research on something and you finish an article or finish watching a video and there's a little link and you click and that takes you over here and all and then that and next thing you know you're 10 steps removed. Now, that's fine if you don't have a deadline and you're just exploring and gathering. But if you do, again, it goes back to why it's important to having that defined goal, is because when you start bouncing, mindfully you recognize, hey, what am I doing over here? Okay, what's the point? Okay, that's real interesting, but is it going to bring me back to here? So that if you are a procrastinator in this situation and you're using the research really as a way to just kind of distract you and justify you bouncing around and entertaining yourself, then it forces you to kind of come back, both with the timer of having a deadline and a specific question. If you're overwhelmed, what this date and prescribing specific times does is help you down regulate that this is going to be an ongoing, forever sort of threat that you can focus on and say, okay, I've got 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours, whatever it is and then it'll be over. And it can create a tremendous amount of relief for you and settling that down, because now your brain goes, okay, I'm working towards this specific goal. And as you'll hear me say a million times, your brain is an intelligent, creative, problem-solving machine. And the more good data that you give it, the happier it is and the better decisions that you're going to make. So what do we do if we don't have a time limit? If the decision we're looking to make is just kind of out there, I want to take a vacation, or in a year or 2 years here or there, but I need to make a decision at some point, or I might like to make a decision at some point. How do we go about that? Well, the reality is, do you enjoy researching or you're not, or don't you? For the most part, if you're a procrastinator like I just described, when it comes to that decision, and hey, don't set a timer. Just go out and collect data from whatever sources you like as you like. You don't need to set a time limit on making that decision, because it's not creating any external pressures to do so. But if you're somebody who's kind of overwhelmed with that potential decision of making that, the research is going to go one of two ways. Either it's going to overwhelm you, because the more research you do, the more boxes it opens, right? The more questions and, well, if this and that, and in that case, you need to set a time limit. You need to say, yes, I may be taking this vacation in 2 years, but I need to make a decision. I'm going to make a decision in the next year, or maybe it's even smaller than that, right? But you put a defined time on it. And then you put a defined time of how much research you're going to actually do, and how many boxes you're going to open up and try to figure out. And because at some point, enough is enough, and you need to do that. That can happen too with the procrastinator, right? The procrastinator just says, oh, I'm at some point, enough is going to be enough, and setting that date is there. However, if this isn't a decision with a timeline, with a time demand on it, and it's just kind of out there, and you're kind of overwhelmed by it all, but you enjoy that process of slowly kind of gathering and chunking information, and you can do it in a way that lowers your anxiety levels about the situation, and doesn't make you feel overwhelmed because you're like, okay, I just have to chunk it, and I can keep small chunks, boom, boom, then no need to put a time frame on it. All right. So step two is identifying whether or not a decision has a timeline or not, and whether or not you need to create hard timers, both in how much time you're going to allow yourself to gather research in a specific uh, um, research gathering moment and overall, right? So, all right, for the next hour, I'm going to stay focused on gathering information for this desired outcome. And I have the next 3 days or the next 3 weeks to repeat that process. But then at this date and at this time, I'm done gathering my research so that I can jump into the third step. All right, step three, it's time to make that decision. So, making that decision, it's emotionally, it's never going to be easy, right? Because you are a creative, intelligent problem solver, and you're going to be able to always kind of tweak things and wonder in a hypothetical world, if then. At some point, you got to make that decision. So, what do? You start by going back and saying, is my desired outcome still my desired outcome? And if you need to, kind of retweak that. Then you take all of your research and you go, okay, here are three potential outcomes if I make this decision for this desired outcome. Boom, boom, boom. Then you look at those three possibilities of what decision you can actually make and say which one matches up best with my desired outcome. And then you choose that. You pick that option and you don't look back. Is it going to be the best one? I don't know. Is it going to make your dreams and the desires of your desired outcome come true? Probably not in the way you want, because that's the way most of life is. But the key thing to remember is that for the majority of the decisions you make, again, remember, this isn't about survival. It's not going to make or break you ultimately. It's a decision that is going to move you forward into the process of continual improvement, which I talk about on the Demi improvement cycle. That's what the majority of the decisions you make are about, is about a learning process of mastery. So once you make that decision, you make it and you move forward, because the reality is you're probably going to have to make a decision again about a similar outcome in the future. And that process that you just went through is going to be a process of refinement. So your actual decision that you make is going to be one that, for the most part, doesn't greatly impact the survival of who you are and your overall happiness and well-being of life. And number two is going to be a decision that you probably get to modify and tweak along the way once you begin the process of taking action. Simple three-step process. Maybe not so simple, but hopefully it's a tool that helps you anchor and get some decisions done, whether or not you're frozen in that decision-making process because you're procrastinating about it, and you're just underwhelmed or overwhelmed, or underwhelmed by it, or if you're overwhelmed and you're getting all anxious. It's a process that helps you chunk it down and move forward, make that decision, and go on to enjoying life. So if you are watching this at hankdegroat.com, look down. You will find a quick little cheat sheet, whether it's a JPEG that you download to your phone or a PDF that you want to print out, whatever works best for you. It's there. It goes over this tool. So it's a quick reference so that when you need it, boom, you can access it and start working it and implementing it into your life. If you're watching this somewhere else, maybe just at YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, wherever, then sneak on over to hankdegroat.com. Check out the Joby Toolbox link and get all the cheat sheets you need and a bunch of other great information while you're there.